Have you ever looked at all the gear musicians use and wonder, how does it all work? My name's Dustin, and my family and I are setting out on a quest to inspire both adult and kid musicians to create new sounds together and learn all about what it takes to produce great music. We'd like to invite you along on the journey as we explore the gear professional studios, musicians, and hobbyists use to create their art. We'll take a close-up look at the gear and ask,
what's this button do?
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of our greatest things that came out in 2024. I'm your host Dustin, and today we are going to finish up our list with our final about half a dozen, actually 7 things that absolutely blew us away in 2024. And these truly, everything that's on this list, I really don't have them in a particular order. I'm trying to give you a top 7 here, but I'm going to say because everything is so different than each other, all of these things are absolutely fantastic. I would wholeheartedly recommend any of them. There is a clear number 1, but the rest of them are all amazing as well. So let's continue where we left off last week. One thing we didn't talk about last week was amps. There was not a lot of new amplifiers last year that just absolutely blew me away. But there were 2. So the first 2 items on the list today are amps. One of them, anyone who's been following this show will know, it sits right back here behind me. You can see it right back there. That's actually my Silktone Parrallel. This has been on pretty much every recording you guys have listened to this year. So I'm not going to play a lot of demo tracks of it here. I think everybody knows what it sounds like by now. But I'm going to tell you, the Parrallel is the ultimate. If you can only have one amp and you are a pedal player and you want something that has a good clean platform, but that can also get dirty and grimy on its own, there is no better amp. I genuinely believe that. I think what Charles has done here is given you an all-in-one that is absolutely amazing. Now, mine is a custom version because I play baritone a lot. I had him put a 15-inch speaker in there instead of a 12. And I will say personally, mine for anybody who plays baritone or bass or has to mix it up and actually does some guitar, some bass, and baritone, that amp will handle all 3 with no problems. You've heard demos of a bass 6 using that amp. You've heard me demo normal guitars using that amp, and you heard me demo a Sandberg bass last year using that amp. All 3 of them sounded amazing, and that to me, it just makes it the most versatile amp on the market. It has its own gain structure and can get really dirty and grimy if it needs to, but I set it clean most of the time and then let my pedals push it, and it's just so stinking good. Price is good, quality is amazing. Charles just, I can't say enough things. And again, this is not a sponsored channel. Silktone does not pay me to say any of this. I am just wholeheartedly, absolutely in love with what he's doing over there, and that amp is the epitome of just absolute magic. So well done, Charles. I cannot say enough about it. It's killer, killer, killer. Now, we've got one more amp to talk about coming in at number 6. And this amp, you haven't heard on the channel yet. I'm working on some demos of it right now. So I'm going to do a little reveal. I have talked a little bit about this over on our Instagram. But sitting right behind me is the Fender Jack White Panoverb. Now, this amp was a kind of shocker. I got to play Jack White's guitar at NAMM last year, and they were talking all about releasing the guitar. They didn't really talk about this amp. So I was really surprised when they announced it. I thought it was going to be super wild. But I'm going to be honest with you. There hasn't been a lot of modern Fender amps that have really blown me away. I love my old Deluxe. I used to have an old Super that I absolutely fell in love with, but most of the new emulation things that they've done, I'm like, I get it for a gigging musician. They're lightweight, they're great to carry around, but they kind of only did one thing and they did it okay. It just never really blew my mind. And even like the old blues, I love the old blues deluxes and stuff. Like, they're great for recording. I love having them around, but they're definitely very, very much just a one kind of amp. They don't do a whole lot of different things. What Jack White did with the Panoverb was really ask Fender to push themselves and to change things around, and they did it. He took what he liked about like the old Vibrasonics and the Vibraverbs and the Vibra Kings, all different amps, and they all sound very different when you start playing with them. But he took the best of all those things, had them put them in one amp, and then went above and beyond that because Jack White is a big fan of pedals. So this amp had to be a pedal platform. It had to be very clean, have high headroom, but he also typically uses a little bit of a boost. And so the amp itself, the very first dial, if you click it, it actually has a click on, and as you turn it on, you're adding a little bit of a boost in there. I think it's like a 10 dB or 20, I can't remember what it was. But the boost actually will give you a little bit more loudness. I will tell you, it doesn't introduce a ton of gain until you get to about the 7, 8 o'clock round. You're not going to have to worry. Or sorry, I guess really it's more like a 3 o'clock kind of area on the dial. But it doesn't introduce a lot of its own gain. It still keeps pretty good headroom, but it gives you a good volume boost. Again, kind of in keeping with that pedal platform idea. Plus, and this is the really cool part, we just talked about this with the Parallel. This has a 15-inch speaker. So for baritones and for some deeper resonances, it sounds amazing. But above and beyond that, if you're just running through guitar, when you're introducing fuzz, a lot of time fuzzes can get lost in the mix because they're so trebly and they bring out so much of the treble in a guitar amp that you lose them sometimes. And they'll either be really ear-piercingly cutting, or if you try to make them sound good, they get too muddy. With this, because you've got that deeper bass resonance in there with the 15-inch speaker, it holds up fuzz pedals really well and really lets them pound out in the mix and get some heavier distortion feel in there. Plus, there's a second speaker that's a 10-incher to really accentuate the high notes. And then the genius of Jack White is he's asked them to split the signal, so effectively both speakers are running as a amplifier of their own. So you're running the amp in stereo, and the onboard tremolo and the onboard reverb are both set where you can actually divide them out amongst the speakers. So you could run wet dry if you wanted one speaker to be dry, one speaker to be wet, you could do that. Or you can run them in stereo and actually create kind of a cool stereo field. And the tremolo, it sounds amazing with that. So just absolute genius from Jack White. I'm going to take a second here to play you a little clip. And this is going to be a weird one because this was shot on the day I got the amp with a little cell phone, a little portable camera. So the audio is not the greatest in the world, but I was so impressed by how this sounds with crappy audio. I wanted you to hear it because it's that good. So let's cut over to the clip real quick and let you hear my first impressions of the amp as I played through it, just warming it up to see how it sounded. See what I mean? I hope you understood why I was playing you that clip. I was just so blown away by it, thinking like, wow, like what an amazing, amazing sound right off the bat. I thought it was so great. I wanted to share that with you from my first impression. So, all right, now what I think everybody's been waiting for, back to the pedals. Let's talk about our final 5 on the list, 4 of which are pedals, 1 is a guitar. Coming in at number 5, and again, no real specific order here, but there is a pedal from Universal Audio that came out this year that absolutely blew my mind, and it was controversial. Man, when I put this on the channel, I got hate comments, I got love comments. It was all over the place. Like, it just spawned this whole fire. But I was so sold. Earlier in the year, this year, they released a pedal called the Anti. And you guys know I love Tool. I kind of like that heavier sound. I love playing some of that kind of music. And when the Anti came out and I plugged it in, running it into just a clean kind of Fendery sound, I was blown away by how crunchy the Anti could get things to sound, how it made them sound like you were playing through a like high gain amp, and it just blew me away. So I thought the Anti was going to make this list. And then toward the end of the year, Universal Audio announced they were releasing another pedal called the Knuckles. And the Knuckles was another high gain pedal, but based more on that kind of triple rec sound, which honestly, having played like a Diesel VH4 and a triple rec and Soldados, I have never been a giant triple rec fan. It was never kind of my jam. But I got the Knuckles in. And the Knuckles became quickly my go-to distortion pedal. This little beast, I will tell you, is one of the best sounding pedals. And I'm going against the grain. I got yelled at this by so many people, but I will stand by this. I don't like running this direct. I don't like running this as an emulation thing. I never turn the speaker emulator on here. This runs into the front of my clean amps all day long, every day. I have this on my pedal board as a pedal. I do not use this as an emulator. And I genuinely believe it's the best distortion pedal that's ever been made. And I will stand by this. I urge you to try it. If you get a chance, please, please, please give it a go. If you are into distortion at all, if you've played for any length of time, I think you'll understand this. There is something that a distortion pedal can't do 99% of the time. If you have a clean amp or a clean-ish amp, if you're playing through a Fender or you're playing through just kind of a basic amp, you will never get that heavy metal chug kind of sound out of a regular distortion pedal. You can get close, but there is something that happens with a really good high gain amp, like the Karsten's Grace behind me here, a Soldano, a Diesel VH4, the fourth channel on that. When you hit a chord, a power chord, or you're chugging, there is a compression that happens. There's this sag that creates this kind of feeling, and it's so hard to describe because it's the feeling your body feels. It's the feeling that there's like something happen, a rock punching you every time somebody just chugs on that guitar. And distortion pedals just don't create that sound. They don't have that sag. They don't have that little bit of a just punch to them that you get out of an amplifier until the UA Knuckles. The Knuckles is the first pedal that I have had give me that feeling in the room. And with the built-in noise gate, it just can do those sounds so absolutely well. I'm blown away by it. I'm going to play you a little bit of the clip that I played earlier this year. This is the one that got me all sorts of yelled at. But I don't care because I really love the sound of this. I'm going to let you hear it just a little bit. This is, again, not really in a mix, but I just wanted you to hear what that kind of feeling sounds like. Notice how there's no scratchiness, no crackles around the edges of the knuckles. I think there's a little bit more definition there. Versus I know that doesn't do a good job of really capturing the feeling in the room, but it's so, so magical. I urge you, if you get a chance, if you're in the market for a distortion pedal, I know these are expensive as a distortion pedal. I know most people are going to be buying this for the emulator side of things, but I am telling you, if you want the end all be all of distortion, that's it. There's just nothing better. Now, coming in at number 4, and this was a tough one. This is these next 4. I've been debating, like, okay, what are the 4 gonna really be, and what order I wanted to do them in, because all 4 of these are on my pedal board constantly, or 3 of them, I guess. One of them's a guitar, but they are on my pedal board all the time. I don't take them off. I love them. I think they are truly the best pedals that have come out ever, not just this year. But I'm going to start with one that came out right after Thanksgiving. Again, kind of talking about this earlier. This is why I wait till the first of the year to give you my year in review, because had I shot these in December, I wouldn't have had these yet. But in Thanksgiving break, on Black Friday, Mythos Pedals announced that they were going to do a new version of the Mjolnir. And you guys have seen me. I use the Mjolnir all the time on my demos. You've seen variation after variation. I think I have like 6 or 7 different variations of that pedal. I love them all. But Zach posted that he had gotten a hold of some old 1N34A transistors, which are what was in the original Klons. And so he decided to do a small batch run of Klons with those in there. And so I ordered one. He did a gold one and he did a silver one. They both sound the same, everything, just an aesthetics thing. So I ordered the gold one in, got it in, and I will tell you, I have played this in front of so many pedals. I bet at least 30 to 40 different pedals. and I have yet to find a pedal that this didn't make sound better, just having it on the front end. And you'll notice the settings that I have this at right now. Everything is set at right around 8:30 to 9 o'clock. I don't push this. It can do the whole Klon thing where if you want to get gain out of it, you can. But one of the magical things about a good Klon and the original Klons is they were a sweetener. You could barely turn them on their dials, and you would enhance the tone of anything you played through it. That's why so many old good musicians have them running at the beginning of their board. So it was such a massive thing. And I have played tons of different versions of the Klon. The Warm Audio Centavo is probably a fantastic one that I use a lot. The old Mjolnirs are fantastic. And there's been a lot. Origin Effects did a great one. LSL did a great one. But none of them have truly, truly sounded like my original Klon that I used to have. But when they got so expensive, I had to sell my Klon. So I know the guy who has it, so I borrow it every now and then just to hear it again. And I've never found anything to truly replace it until this. This, I will tell you, can do everything that I liked about my old Klon and more. When I max it out, I actually get into some sweeter gain spots. But what blows me away is the treble knob on here. I have no idea how Zach did it, but you don't have to have the treble knob very far. It does not decrease the treble sound, where a lot of times on treble you've got to kind of increase it to get it past noon before your sound sounds good. It doesn't sound washed out. This doesn't. This doesn't do anything to negatively affect your tone. It only makes it better. And in that 9 to 10 o'clock range, you can hear these harmonics start to happen in your tube amps that are just absolutely beautiful. But proof's in the pudding. Let's just listen to a little demo of it real quick. I'll give you a little sweet snippet of what I'm talking about. All right, I'm gonna let you hear how this sounds, and I want you to see the Mjolnir, even at its minimum settings, how much it can change your playing. So I'm gonna use the Collings i35. I've got it plugged in, and this is what it sounds like clean. Really beautiful, nice, chimey kind of sound. But when I add in the Mjolnir with the output at around 9:30, the treble barely on, and the gain off, see how that just accents the treble a little bit? And you can hear it push those mids up, wash the bass out a little bit. It just adds that little extra something there, which is beautiful for clean playing. But where it really comes in is, let's turn this off for a second. I'm going to turn on that Silktone Overdrive Plus, and I'm going to put it in strangle mode so it's in that kind of muddy tone setting. And watch how the Mjolnir makes it come alive. So a nice overdrive, but you can hear the tones kind of roll back a little bit. So when you stack that in front of an overdrive pedal, and especially if you're trying to do a solo, or if you really want to make your riffs pound a little bit more and really come to the front of the mix, the Mjolnir does that so well. And that's what the Klon was known for. That's why so many people would use Klons on these lower settings. They weren't pushing the gain with the Klon. They were using the Klon to boost up their other pedals. And man, Mythos nailed this. It's just so freaking perfect. Now to number 3, and number 3, again, is one of those pedals that I had to wait till right at the end of the year. In fact, it came in right at Christmas, and was so good that I wound up selling off a ton of gear so that I could trade it in for both versions of this. And you're gonna think I'm insane when I say that, because this is probably the most expensive pedal I own, and it is genuinely one of the best things I have ever played. I love the Univibe sound. And for those who have watched the channel before, there's a company called Sabbadius that made a funky vibe, is what they called it, which was a recreation of the Univibe and sounded amazing. I've been running a copy of their Mastermind edition for several years. It's got 3 different versions, a 1968, and then the mastermind setting and this kind of like warbly underwater setting that just sounds really, really good. And I had no desire to have another Univibe, had no desire to try another Univibe, anything. And then one of my friends called me and said, hey, you got to check this out. There is a new Univibe from Sabbadius. I got one. Come over and play it. And so I went over, and he had the 1968 Univibe. And what this is Nico from Sabbadius got his hands on an original Shinai. And there was this transition period where things were changing around there, and there's kind of a couple of different sounds that you could get depending on the units that you got, depending on what was happening at the time. There was several different sounds that you would hear. And so what Nico did is basically took those down to bare bones and rebuilt them and recreated the old school Univibes from 68 and 69 and actually captured the differences between a 68 model and a 69. The 68s had a much chewier sound to them, a much thicker vibrato, and they could also get a little faster on the speed. The 69 models were a little bit slower on the speed, but more smooth, so they sounded more natural with your playing. So a lot of players gravitated toward the 69. Jimi Hendrix tended to gravitate toward that 68 sound in a lot of things, but he had a 69 as well. So you, depending on the songs that you were listening to from Hendrix and some of the players of the era, really there was a big difference between the Univibes that were being played. And so after playing the 68, I fell in love, picked up one. Actually picked up a 69 because that was what he had bought, the 68, and there was only a 68 and a 69 in the shop. So I bought the 69 and loved it. Absolutely loved it. The smoothness of it sounded great and everything, but his 68, that chewiness was so good too. I was like, oh my gosh, these are both just absolutely killer. So sold a bunch of stuff so I could pick up a 68 as well. Nico built it for me, set it up here, and now we are, in the next couple of weeks, going to be doing a shootout between the two of them here on the channel, so I'm not going to spoil a whole lot from there, but I want you to join us back here for that demo, but I am going to play you just a little snippet of some of the stuff I've already recorded with these because I want you to hear how absolutely beautiful these sound. Everything is recreated fully, and it's big. Like, don't get me wrong, these are like studio kind of things. This is heavy, it's big. It does not have a speed knob on it because you control everything with a foot pedal, and the foot pedal is custom designed to work with that unit. It has a cable that goes into the unit, and that controls your speed completely. It even has a little click on the back, so when you move your pedal back, and let me see if I can let you hear this here. So this is the 68. I'll put see that little click there. When that click happens, you're disengaging the vibe itself, and you're still allowing the preamp, which was part of the magic of these vibes, to exist. So you can completely kill the vibe part of it and still allow the preamp to happen, to be in the signal chain, and that's just absolutely magical too. So the stuff that he's done with this have made it into the perfect modern vibe. And I will tell you, as much as I hate to say this, now that I've played these, my other mastermind I'm gonna sell off because these are so amazingly good and so much better. I can't. The only negative to them is they're so massive that I can't put both of them on a pedal board. That's just not even functional. But wow. If you are a Univibe fan, I will tell you, I don't care what your favorite Univibe is, get rid of it and get one of these. It's that good, that amazing, and that well done. Nico just nailed this. It's perfect. I mean, abso-freaking-lutely perfect. Well done, my friend. We're going to just be using the old Fender Telly here. And what I've done right now is I have got the funky vibe completely out of the signal chain so you can hear what this sounds like when I activate it. Just the boost. I don't even have the funky vibe itself engaged. I've got the pedal all the way back. So here's just what it sounds like playing my normal signal now with the funky vibe. Back to my normal. See how it just gives you that little bit of extra. Just just a beautiful boost in and of itself. And then what's really cool, dial this back to around 3 o'clock. Let's take it completely out again. Now let's add it in. See how there's not a whole lot of difference there. You can gauge that boost out if you want to, or you can really crank it up. I like the sweetness. I like having it at that 7 to 8 range. Just sounds really, really good. But then listen to this. When we get this thing going, oh my gosh. And again, right now I've got the intensity set to 10, so you can dial this back a little bit, but I wanted you to hear the full swell of this. This is the 69, so a little less chewy than the 68, but listen to how beautiful this sounds if I barely engage the pedal. I'll switch to the humbuckers. I love the way that sounds with a bucker because the bass just comes through. And you can just slowly treatle up. You can hear it increasing in speed. And you can even get into that, which is wicked, like. Love that. All right, so we're down to the final two. And number 2 is going to be my number 1 pedal for the year because there's a guitar that takes the cake on everything. But the best pedal of the year, and the pedal that has been on my board since the day I got it and has never left, and I don't think ever will leave, is a pedal by my friend Charles at Silktone. Again, Silktone actually made this list twice, but well deservedly so. And I am shocked after watching other people's top 10s and top 15s for the year. I was dumbfounded that this was not number 1 on everybody's list. I genuinely can't understand it. I think this is the best overdrive pedal I've ever heard in my life. I have shot the Silktone Overdrive Plus out against my Pete Cornish pedals, some of the best overdrives in the world, and nothing has come close to the amazing sounds that you can get from here. I shot a little demo of this when it first came out, and I'll play you a little excerpt from it in a second, but I'll tell you, it doesn't even do it justice. I've played with this so much more and dialed in more settings since then. The versatility of this drive and the way that it takes other drives coming into it. You can run like that Mythos Mjolnir in front of it. You can run a Klon in front of it. You can run a boost in front of it. You can even run fuzz in front of it and can sculpt the tone with this pedal. It is so versatile, so functional, and so amazing. What he did here is unmatched. And I will tell you, it can do low gain, it can do high gain, and this little button right here is the magic button. You hit that and move it into kind of that raw mode where the tone gets swept back a little bit. Wow, the distortion that brings into it and gives you this killer drive. Absolutely freaking fantastic. If there is one pedal I'm going to tell you is worth every penny, it is not expensive. It is phenomenal for what it is. I would suggest this for every type of player, even those of you who play clean for the most part. You can set this into a tone sweetening spot where you can just get a nice light overdrive and it will blow your mind. But then if you ever need to get into the heavy stuff, this can do that too. By far and above the best overdrive on the planet. This right here, the Silktone Overdrive Plus. Gain up to about 9 o'clock. Bring it up to about noon. Hear that? Listen to those harmonics. freaking killer. Well, for those who have been doing math this whole time, you realize there is but one thing left for us to talk about this year, my number one piece. And as I've alluded to several times during this, it is a guitar. But this is by no means an ordinary guitar. Those who follow the show saw me do an entire episode on this last year, and you've seen it appear in a couple other videos as well. But there was a guitar that was about 2-3 years in the making. Took a long time to design and to make it work, but it is genuinely the most amazing guitar I've ever played, and it's the most inspirational piece that I think I've ever had in my arsenal. But it's also the weirdest thing that I have in my arsenal. So those who know the show will recognize the name Fidelity Guitars. Matt and I, we've made several guitars together. He actually made me a signature guitar a few years ago, the DB, that has now been made and played by some amazing players that still just blows my mind that a guitar I got to help design is being played by some truly greats out there. But the DB was one of my favorite guitars. It just absolutely blew me away. It was a baritone guitar that just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal guitar that Matt executed perfectly. I loved it. But I had this crazy idea one day. I wanted to try, I have a fretless bass, and I thought, man, what would a fretless baritone be like? That could be pretty amazing. So I reached out to Matt because he was the only one I thought would be crazy enough to be willing to try something like that. And we started going down this path, and I said, man, I'd really love to have a fretless baritone. And those who know, whenever I do a custom guitar, I usually base it on a literary thing that I happen to love. And there's a comic book called The Sandman that I think was just an absolute inspiration for me growing up. It's also been an inspiration for a lot of my music, but I absolutely love it by Neil Gaiman, who's not so sure about the dude, but the books are amazing. Uh, so I wanted the guitar to kind of be inspired by that. And so we were talking, and Matt was like, "Oh, I have this artist, Miss E, that does a lot of like graffiti art in the UK, and she would be perfect to design the artwork on this." So I put together some of my favorite quotes from the Sandman and some of my favorite ideas and images from the Sandman, and I said, "Okay, I'd love her to kind of use that as inspiration for her artwork. Let's do the fretless baritone, but we need this to do something else." And I thought, what are the downfalls of fretless guitar? And the downfalls of fretless guitar are you are picking and you have, especially on a true fretless. And let me show you what I'm talking about here. There are no frets on here. So when you're trying to figure out what note you're playing, I have to rely on the dot markers over here and the markings to try and make sure I'm hitting the perfect spots when I'm playing my notes. That can be really tricky. Plus, every string that you pluck, it has a different kind of sound, almost like a muted sound as you pluck them. But there's times you kind of like to drone a note, maybe have that note sustain out a ways. And because there's no frets, you can't really hold in vibrato and really make those notes sustain the way that you want to. So Matt got with his friend Neil over at NRG Effects, and they decided to go above and beyond. So first of all, let me let you see the artwork that Missy did. And this goes all the way around, and I will show you the back. This is my favorite. I love ravens. And so she took Matthew the Raven from the story and actually put him on the back, which was just phenomenal. And then my favorite quotes from the book are actually tagged onto the guitar itself. So, like Dreams of the High Cost of Living, there's just Dream Shape the World. It just so many cool, or Death, sorry, I think it was actually so first, let me show you the artwork from Missy, because this is just insane. You guys can see it here. Graffiti art all across there. The graffiti has some of my favorite quotes, like "Dream shape the world," "Death is the high cost of living." Those are all on there. And then on the back, she did a Matthew the Raven, which is just absolutely insane. But above and beyond that, there are 3 pickups on here. This first pickup is not a pickup. It is actually a custom-made sustainer by Energy Effects, and each one of those magnets will sustain an individual string. Then there are 6 switches back here that will activate each unit individually, or a master switch that activates the sustainers on all 6 strings simultaneously. this creates some of the most insane effects that you will ever hear. Sometimes playable, sometimes not. It is a hard beast to tame, let me tell you. There are days where I'm just like, oh, I've got to fight this to make it work. But that's the fun of it, is this breeds creativity. It breeds new sounds that you can't make with another instrument. And I think what I loved about this project so much is this is me. This is my kind of style. This is my kind of fun. I like weird, crazy sounds. And what Matt did by embracing my idea and making it come to life, I think is something I wish for every guitarist to be able to do, be it through pedals, through their gear, through their amps, through their guitars themselves. Let your gear bring out your personality and let your gear inspire you to make new sounds. And I hope that this inspires some of you to think about, like, if there's something that you've always wanted to try with a guitar and some crazy sound that you can't currently get with a guitar that exists, don't be afraid to reach out to your favorite guitar maker. And honestly, I'm going to plug him here, Matt at Fidelity Guitars. No job is too crazy for him. And honestly, for what you can do, there are people out there that if they like the idea and they want to get behind the idea and have some fun, they're not going to charge you an arm and a leg to make it happen. A lot of times, like this project, this was 4 people working together to create something absolutely beautiful and absolutely wild. And it was so much fun to do. Like I said, it took several years. It was a long-term project, but this is what you can do if you dream something up and have fun. And I hope that this encourages all of you to go out there and try something new, try something different, try one of these weird pieces of gear, or just try to make your own weird sound that you've never heard before using your pedals and your gear, and just see what happens, because the things that you can do are limitless. And I think the best way to play this out is with this little clip, which this moment happened after about an hour of me having the guitar. I was just messing around. I turned on a backing drum track, and then this happened. And this has since become one of my favorite songs to play, and it's become a real song for me, which just was so much fun. So have a little listen. think that's a great way to wrap up 2024. Thank you all for coming out today. I know this was a whole lot to take in, but oh my gosh, there was just so much amazing things. This year, I think, is already off to a great start. I'm looking forward to see what NAMM has to offer. But we'll be making a few little changes here at the show. I'm going to be not just focusing on new stuff this year. I'm going to be taking a look at pedal combos, some things that I love. They're older. And showing you how I use those in the studio. But we're also going to talk about other things as well this year. So please, 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 if you have some ideas of things you'd like to see covered this year, drop them in the comments below. Feel free to hit me up anytime. My email's down in the notes section as well. So always reach out. I'm always glad to help however I can. Thank you so much for coming out this year. Thanks again to my friends at Palen for making this possible and hosting me on the channel. I absolutely love them. Encourage you to go to their website. And please visit us over on Instagram as well if you get a chance. We'll be posting little snippets out there as well. But in the meantime, thank you all so much. Hope you have a wonderful week this week. Take care, and I'll see you next week.